good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this very exciting day today, the 2nd of November. 22 degrees and bright and sunny in Brisbane, though some rain has been predicted later on. We'll see how we go. Hey, how did you fare with the Melbourne Cup? The 1st November in the first Tuesday in November stops the nation with the Melbourne Cup race. When of course we know that the 2022 Melbourne Cup was named Lexus Melbourne Cup. Before it used to be Emirat as well. So every year the people bid for the naming right. This year it was commercially known as Lexus Melbourne Cup, and it was the 162nd running of the Melbourne Cup. It's a very prestigious Australian thoroughbred horse race. The race ran over 3,200 meters, which is about 1.8 miles if you still go into the miles. And it was, of course, held yesterday. And as we know, even though it's happening in Melbourne, throughout the nation, we know that people stop. Right here in Brisbane as well, where our studio is, there was so much a buzz around here. People just rushing off to get to their lunches, and there were so many restaurants and everything that ran special functions. I had arranged for big screens and other things. And so there was a lot of rush. You couldn't get a public transport. It was just absolutely nightmare. But anyway, the spirit was there, and everyone gets into that. And some people around the country enjoyed better weather than was actually at the Cup race, because it was cold, it was wet from time to time as well. But nevertheless, the race must go on. And this year, the race was won by Gold Trip, ridden by Mark Zahra and trained by Sharon Mahar and Davies Ustaz. Well, so there you are, up to date on Australian Indian Radio. I hope you did win a little bit on your sweepstake. And I know even though people are not serious punters, on Melbourne Cup Day, the first Tuesday of November every year is Melbourne Cup Day, and of course the whole nation comes to a stop, and everyone, even someone who knows nothing about betting, in the office sweeps, they buy and they get into the sweep. Well, right now, ladies and gentlemen, let's get on with the news. The next big news is the interest rate has come up once again, 7th consecutive time.
This was your forecast, a 25 basis point or a quarter of a percentage point move. So you're not surprised?
Look, it was there was a risk, obviously, that they might go the half a percentage point given the upside to inflation that came through last week. So we were aware of those risks, but our central case was for a quarter point increase today. And that was really based on the arguments that the RBA put forward for why they did choose a 25 basis point rise last time. The fact, as you've just mentioned, Alicia, that interest rates had gone up very quickly, that the cash rate was much higher, had gone than where it was, and that the outlook for the global economy had deteriorated. So they felt that it was wise to wait and gauge the impact of the rate hikes that they've had so far. So those arguments obviously still stand, and they've gone for another 25.
And
so another 25 is what they have gone for, and we'll see what it equates to. Right now, let's hear from our Treasurer about the impacts.
This is another difficult day for Australians who are already under the pump. This means Australians with a mortgage will have to find that little bit extra in their monthly budget to accommodate these interest rate rises. This is exactly why inflation is the biggest challenge in our economy. This is exactly why inflation was the primary influence on the budget that I handed down last week. When inflation is high and rising and interest rates are rising with it, it's more important than ever that the budget is responsible and restrained and right for the times, and that's what our budget is. The Reserve Bank has changed their forecast for inflation. They now expect inflation to peak around 8% towards the end of the year. The Treasury's expectation is more like 7 3/4, but they have always said that the risks when it comes to inflation are on the upside, given what's happening in energy markets as a consequence of the war in Ukraine, and given the upward pressure on grocery prices brought about by flooding of some of the prime farmland in Eastern Australia in particular.
So many different contributing factors, but when you look at the factors like, the argument about the war in Ukraine, well, it has a global impact, but that war was already there even before this current government took office. So there's something that really needed to be addressed there and then. Well, right now, because it is the 7th consecutive rate hike, what does this mean? Let's hear Alicia Barris as she analyses the situation.
Well, 3 out of 4 economists were right. We have seen a quarter of a percentage point increase, taking the cash rate to 2.85%. Even though it's on the smaller end of the scale when it comes to the possible interest rate increases, it still has been a rapid rise in interest rate increases. The trajectory has been very steep. If we look over the last 5 years of interest rate increases, you can see that the cash rate, when we bring up that chart, was sort of, running around that 1.5 level before it came down during the pandemic and then bottomed at the record low of 0.1%. But then since May has just jumped very steeply up to that 2.85% cash rate, which, even going back to 2017, you can see it's still much steeper than people have been used to. And that is playing out for those with a mortgage. Of course, this is going to only increase the amount that people are paying in their monthly mortgage. If you take a look at the $750,000 loan, for example, it's an extra $112 per month, and that's when you can factor in May to November, and then an extra $1,100 plus per month that people are having to dig in and pay out to their mortgage. So it's only going to decrease the available amount of disposable income that people have to spend in the economy, which is the idea. But of course, there is a risk that the RBA does go too far and we do see a recession.
A recession we need to really avoid, but if you look at that 7th consecutive rise, the whole idea is to keep inflation in control, keeping it to a manageable level, and that has always been a challenge. Everything just keeps getting up. I was just speaking to Dilraj, and the childcare services, rents are going up, so where and how do we stop the cycle? You put one thing up, then the next, and the next, and the next, and so it's just a vicious cycle. No one's any better off because even though something's increased, but the costs have gone up as well. So it is a hard and very, very hard times and very balancing act. So people doing up their budgets will need to sharpen your pencils. Well, right now, what about the consumers? The consumers are warned that please shop around.
NAB came out of the block straight away yesterday. They announced that they're passing on this rate hike in full to their variable mortgage customers. That is no surprise. What they didn't say, however, is what they're doing with savers. That's hugely disappointing. I can only assume the strategy here is to stay quiet, keep their cards to their chest, see what the other big three announce for savers, and then make their decision based on that. Haven't heard anything yet from the other three. We should hear something today, if not in the next couple of days.
OK, well, let's talk about savers. We focus a lot on people who are borrowers, but what about savers? Because banks haven't been so quick to pass on the rises down to them historically.
No, not at all. And this should be savers' time in the sun after about 10 years of watching their savings rates just plummet to the ground. Banks are picking and choosing which savings accounts get a boost and which miss out. Why are they doing that? Well, they need to get new money coming through the door, particularly because when you come to funding home loans, deposits in the bank is suddenly becoming a competitive source of funding. So that's good news for savers. There is competition in the marketplace, but you can't just assume your account is going up. You've got to be proactive about it. Certainly with the big four banks, they've got online saver accounts. I'm talking about CBA's NetBank Saver, Westpac's eSaver, NAB's iSaver and ANZ's Online Saver. Those accounts, if you've got one of them, you're earning an ongoing rate of 1.1% or less. In ANZ's case, it's 0.6%. The cash rate is 2.85%. That is absolutely ridiculous. At the other end of the scale, you've got banks offering over 4% now. That's fantastic to see. They're likely to go up. So now's the time to start shopping around.
Okay, so really a reminder to people, there are banks out there that are offering over 4% for savers, so really do shop around. And you've got a message for people this morning who are borrowers as well. Shop around because you've crunched some numbers on what people can do, what people can gain if they refinance.
Yes, absolutely. And if people do refinance and if they shop around, they can save. But always be mindful of the changeover costs. There are some penalties for early termination of your current loans as well. So weigh up all the facts. But in the long term, overall, you might do better. Well, the other question is whether you fix your loan now or go on variable or have a portion on fixed and a portion on variable. These are some tough questions. Do speak to your financial advisors. Seek assistance before you even shop around as well. Shopping around, sometimes what might look okay on the face value, in the end, it might not be the right thing. Well, right now, let's go to New South Wales, where there's been damaging winds and flash floods.
A search is underway for two men missing in floodwaters in New South Wales' southern tablelands. Police say last night they were called to Bevendale, about 50 kilometres east of Borrowa, after reports a ute attempted to cross a flooded causeway and was swept off the road. Two men managed to free themselves from the cabin of the vehicle, but another two men, who were believed to be in the tray, haven't been located. The search was suspended due to poor light overnight. It has since resumed. Dozens of properties have been evacuated at Cootamundra in the New South Wales Riverina, northwest of Canberra, after flash flooding. Reporter Shannon Corvo joins us now from there. Hi, Shannon. What's the town looking like?
Hi, Roz. As you can see behind me, there is debris everywhere. So behind me, there is debris all along that bridge there, and just past that bridge, a lot of trees have fallen down. The Scouts Hall just across the road has its gates filled with debris. The river is also rising quite rapidly, the Muddama Creek, and that's because of heavy rainfall overnight, which has caused flash flooding and those creek rises here in Cootamundra.
So there you are, a lot of debris and the flash flooding happening there. Well, of course, staying in New South Wales, of course, Taronga Zoo, the 5 lions have broken out. So if you see a lion in your backyard, please do return it to Taronga Zoo. And the search continues for the missing. Right now, we'll go to Northern Territory, where the government denies greenwashing of Northern Territory's industrial precinct.
This undeveloped land south of Darwin will become a booming industrial precinct under a major commitment backed by both levels of government. But whether the Middle Arm project will include gas-based manufacturing known as petrochemicals depends on which Labor politician you ask.
This is not a petrochemical plant. This is a sustainable future project that is based on renewable energy into the future.
The Middle Arm, I've no doubt, will rely on some gas because Northern Territory is powered by gas.
The Chief Minister today criticised an environmental group concerned Middle Arm will include petrochemicals among its mix of industries.
So I challenge the Environment Centre to stop making mistruths that are based on nothing but rubbish.
But material suggesting the area will include petrochemicals is scattered across NT government websites, which also invite investment in renewable hydrogen, minerals processing and carbon capture and storage.
It's clearly about gas expansion, and no amount of dressing up in the language of sustainability or strategic environmental assessments is going to change that.
Of course, it's not going to change. So there you are. That's a very, very valued argument which has been put forward. Well, right now, still in Northern Territory, well, of course, Melbourne has its Melbourne Cup. Well, Northern Territory does it quite differently. They do have the races on as well.
3, 2, 1, go! It might not stop the entire nation, but these racing reptiles brought this top-end tavern to a standstill. The Crocs trainers confident their salties would be snappy right out of the gate.
Oh, they're pretty good. Corners they don't do so well and they slip out, that's what the claws are for. But hopefully on this straight they'll do pretty good. Yeah.
While millions of dollars are at stake in Melbourne, this race comes with its own special grand prize.
First prize is a carton of beer today, so it's we've pulled out all the big guns. It used to be a 6-pack, but we've had a pretty good dry season this year, so we splashed out and got in the full carton.
Plenty donned their fanciest fascinators and trendiest thongs for the Fashions in the Bush competition to cap off a day giving its southern cousin a run for its money.
We've got lots of contenders for Fashion of the Field and Best Fascinator today, so it should be a wonderful day.
It's a great event here every year. Watching crocodiles race is real Territorian, so it's a great day.
We got second, so we're winning money, so it's got to be better.
And I'm lucky enough to be joined by one of the runners in today's race. You can see, not bad for quite a little crocodile, so making for a very feisty field in today's runnings. While this pub is crock full of racing action, it's not the only venue in the top end marking the Melbourne Cup in their own ways.
It's a bit of fun and it's always well supported. It's great for all the rural pubs like to have events like us and the frog races in Noonamah, just unique events.
Cheers! Good on you, the Territorians, done well. So, wherever you are, you plan your own fun and have your events around that. So, the reptiles up there, wow, wonderful. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now it's time to go to our daily India report.
Welcome to the Daily India Report that brings you reports, interviews, features and more on India and the Indian diaspora. University in Ukraine has cancelled the temporary residency permit of more than 350 Indian students over late payment of fees.
In a setback for Indian medical students pursuing their degrees in Ukrainian universities, Dnipro State Medical Academy has cancelled the temporary residency permit of more than 350 Indian students over late payment of fees. The medical institution, which is situated in Dnipro, in the eastern part of Ukraine, had set a deadline for the payment of fees on September 29, 2022, after which they made a list of students who either didn't pay the required amount or whose payment the university didn't receive. The list included Indian and international students studying at Dnipro Academy. Some students claimed that they paid the fees on time, but it was not received by universities due to problems with swift payments owing to the war in Ukraine. The war between Russia and Ukraine led to more than 20,000 Indian students leaving the latter between February and April, but may have tried to return to the war-torn country for the completion of their degrees, as National Medical Commission, the Indian regulatory body oversees medical education and professionals, has allowed online classes only for theory and not for practical or clinical training for students in countries such as Ukraine and China. Countries such as Hungary, Moldova and Poland have become alternative routes for Indian students to reach Ukraine, but Dnipro Academy's rules proved to be costly for those taking that chance. Many students from Dnipro Academy who got their permits cancelled remain in India and now have to make their journey to Delhi for renewal of the same. Students from other medical institutions have stated that they have not come across such a rule and said that any action on late payment of fees is initiated after 6 months after the said deadline.
Taiwan Economic Affairs Deputy Minister will visit India with 70-member trade delegation.
The Deputy Minister of Taiwan's Economic Affairs Ministry will travel to India this week with a 70-member trade delegation for wide-ranging talks on economic cooperation and explore new opportunities at 2 business events. The meeting between the Deputy Economic Ministers of India and Taiwan is an annual affair, though it has been virtually for the past 2 years because of the COVID-19 pandemic. The visit by Chen Shih-shen, Deputy Minister of Taiwan's Economic Affairs Ministry, marks the resumption of in-person meetings. This is one of the highest platforms for interaction between the two sides. Besides economic issues, the Deputy Ministers Forum can take up other important issues such as cooperation in science and technology. The meeting of the Deputy Economic Ministers is hosted alternatively by India and Taiwan. The visit comes at a time when the Indian side is in talks with some of Taiwan's biggest chip makers such as Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Co. to set up plants in the country as part of the government plans to take the lead in high-tech manufacturing. It also comes at a time when India's ties with China are severely strained because of the military standoff on the line of actual control. The business delegation accompanying Shen, which will include representatives from some of Taiwan's leading IT and tech companies, will participate in the 6th edition of the India-Taiwan Industrial Collaboration Summit organized by the Federal of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry and the Chinese National Federation of Industries on November 3rd.
Russian Airlines Aeroflot will start 3 weekly flights from Moscow to Goa starting November 2nd.
Russian tourists are all set to flock to Goa beaches this winter, with Aeroflot starting thrice weekly non-stop flights between Moscow and Goa from November 2nd. The Russian carrier's India operations currently include a thrice weekly service between Delhi and Moscow. India is among the few countries that Aeroflot operates to after Russia's war on Ukraine that led to a wave of sanctions on Russia from the West. On the Indian side, Air India is among the few international carriers still overflying Russian airspace for its non-stops to and from the UK, Canada and America. Air India has, however, suspended its Moscow flights due to insurance companies not covering those flights. Aeroflot will operate between Goa and Moscow with its 296-seater Airbus 330 aircraft with 268 economy and 28 business seats on Mondays, Thursdays and Fridays. For Aeroflot, the Goa-Moscow route is a high-demand route. These flights will boost the recovering tourist market in both countries. Tourists from Russia make up the majority of visitors to Goa. With tourist season just around the corner, India is looking forward to welcoming a high number of Russian tourists. India is the primary exporter of essential pharma supplies to Russia and CIS nations. As most airlines are still not flying to Russia due to various sanctions, it is affecting the cargo supply chain from the western region. Aeroflot flights from Goa will help bridge this gap and will further enhance and streamline the supply chain both from the pharmaceutical sector and other goods industries.
A new hyperscale data center has opened in Uttar Pradesh to cater to SMEs, EdTech, health tech companies and public sector units.
The Hiranandani Group's wholly owned subsidiary Yota Infrastructure on October 31st unveiled North India's first hyperscale data center at its Greater Noida Data Center Park in a boost to the region's digital economy. Named Yota D1, it was inaugurated by the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh Yogi Adityanath and Rajiv Chandrasekhar, Union Minister of State for Electronics and IT. The data center has been set up with an investment of around 1,500 crores. Once fully functional, the Yota D1 building will see an additional investment of 5,000 crores in IT equipment. Yota Infrastructure also entered into an MOU with the Uttar Pradesh government to invest 39,000 crore rupees in a phased manner over 5 to 7 years. The investment will go towards constructing the data center campus and procuring IT equipment and other hardware for Yota customers. The data center is spread across 20 acres. The Yota Greater Noida Data Center Park will offer a total capacity of 30,000 racks, 4 dedicated fiber paths and an IT power capacity of 160 megawatt. These data centers will have multiple use cases. Customers from EdTech, health tech companies, SMEs, public sector units, state government initiatives like Ayush, Aadhaar and storage of passport data can tap into these resources.
ISRO to boost NAVIC to increase its use in the civilian sector and ships.
India is planning to expand its regional satellite navigation system, NAVIC, to increase its use in the civilian sector and ships and aircraft travelling far from the country's borders. The navigation with Indian Constellation uses 7 satellites to provide real-time positioning and timing services in India and an area extending up to 1,500 kilometers from the country's borders. Indian Space Research Organisation plans to replace at least 5 of these with the improved L-band, which would enable it to offer better global positioning services to the public as several satellites of the constellation have outlived their lives. ISRO Chairman S. Somnath said, "We have 5 more satellites in production. They have to be launched periodically to replace the defunct satellites. The new satellites will have L1, L5 and S-band." He said the NAVIC system was not in a full-fledged operational regime as some of its 7 satellites have failed. Somnath said, the Space Agency has also approached the government for permission to launch an additional 12 satellites in the medium Earth orbit to expand the reach of NAVIC. Of the 7 satellites used by NAVIC at present, 3 are in the geostationary orbit and 4 are in the geosynchronous orbit.
Northeast monsoon has arrived in southern Indian states and a yellow alert is issued in Tamil Nadu.
As the northeast monsoon arrived in the southern states of Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Andhra Pradesh, among others, the India Meteorological Department issued a rainfall alert for the next 5 days. A yellow alert has been issued in Tamil Nadu for the next 4 days, with some districts on an orange alert on November 1st. Ranipet, Kanchipuram, Tiruvallur, Tirupattur and Vellore are on an orange alert. The Weather Department has also issued a yellow alert for Mahe in Puducherry and Kerala between November 1st and November 2nd. According to the IMD, the northeast monsoon has covered Tamil Nadu, Puducherry, Karaikal, Kerala, Mahe, South Interior Karnataka and Rayalaseema in Andhra Pradesh. It further stated that under the influence of northeasterly winds over the Bay of Bengal, South Peninsular India, and cyclonic circulation over Southwest Bay of Bengal, several states of southern India will receive heavy rainfall till November 3rd. The IMD has forecast rainfall over Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh between November 1st and November 2nd, and over Himachal Pradesh on November 1st.
Netflix has released the trailer of its upcoming film Monica, Oh My Darling, starring Rajkumar Rao, Huma Qureshi and Radhika Apte.
The first trailer of Netflix's upcoming film Monica, Oh My Darling has been released. The dark comedy is helmed by director Vasant Bala and stars Rajkumar Rao, Huma Qureshi and Radhika Apte in the lead roles. The trailer video introduces us to Rao's character, who has been blackmailed by Huma Qureshi's character Monica. To get rid of her, he gets involved in a murder case. Everything turns upside down in his life as Radhika Apte, playing ACP Naidu, enters the frame solving a murder mystery in which she thinks Rao is involved. In the 2-minute retro-themed trailer, there is humor, comedy, action, a murder mystery and several plot twists that will surely take fans' excitement a notch higher. In the 2-minute gripping trailer, Rajkumar, Radhika and Huma are looking fantastic in their respective roles. Apart from the lead cast, the film also stars Sikandar Kher, Johnny Gaddar, Sukant Goyal, Akansha Ranjan Kapoor and Zayn Mari. The film is penned by Yogesh Chandekar and will release on November 11th on Netflix.
तुम तो अच्छे लोग
The trailer of the new espionage thriller series Mukhbir, the story of a spy, was released on October 31st.
Veteran actors Prakash Raj, Adil Hussain and Harsh Chai have collaborated for the upcoming espionage thriller series Mukhbir, the story of a spy. The trailer of the series was unveiled on October 31st. The trailer presents the tale of India's secret agent in Pakistan who rose to the occasion to save the nation and turn the tide of the India-Pakistan 1965 war in India's favour. The show has been directed by Shivam Nair, who is known for Naam Shabana and Special Ops in association with Jaiprad Desai. Speaking on the release of the trailer, Prakash Raj said, Mukhbir celebrates the bravery and the sacrifices of the unsung heroes of India, the spies, and I'm glad to be a part of such a remarkable project. These spies go unnoticed despite their silent but monumental work, and hence Mukhbir is our tribute to their selfless efforts. The show unravels the fate of India at a time when the country could not afford one more war and its future depended on one risky mission led by a secret agent in an enemy country. Adil Hussain said in a statement, I am especially inclined towards stories which move the viewers and inspire them to go beyond the ordinary. Mukhbir is once a story that will appeal to every Indian across the globe. Also, it was exciting to work with the talented director duo of Shivam Nair and Jaiprad Desai, who have notable experience and expertise in the genre. Other than the three actors, the show also stars Zain Khan Durrani, Barkha Sen Gupta, Zoya Afroz, Satyadeep Mishra and Karan Oberoi.
That's all for this bulletin of the Daily India Report.
Thank you very much, Ankita, for that daily report. And of course, we know that we'd like to just have a quick look at what's been happening in India with that bridge.
Survivors of a bridge collapse in Western India say the structure was so overcrowded they were unable to move before it came crashing down. 9 people have been arrested over the tragedy, which has killed at least 135 people. South Asia correspondent Avni Dias reports from Morbi in Gujarat state.
From the hospital in Morbi, survivors recount the moment when disaster struck.
The bridge broke down. I, along with my friend, climbed the rope. I saw people who were standing around me on the bridge drowning.
The suspension bridge had been packed with revellers enjoying Diwali celebrations before hundreds of them were plunged about 10 metres into the Marchu River. Bhikkhu Ben's son, Ravi, was among them.
My son and his friend survived with the blessing of God. Their other friend died.
Funerals have begun to take place. Hopes of finding any more survivors are fading. Rescuers are still searching the area, recovering bodies. Dozens of the dead are children. Residents here are struggling to comprehend what happened.
There is mourning in each house of Morbi. We are together standing with those who lost their children.
This is all that remains of the century-old bridge. It was reopened less than a week ago after a major renovation, but authorities say they hadn't approved it for public use.
9 people have been arrested in connection to the collapse. They include employees of a company contracted to maintain and operate the bridge. Those caught up in the chaos say the disaster could have been avoided.
Had the bridge not been overloaded, then this tragedy would not have happened.
Authorities have vowed to spare no one in the search for answers.
And the answers they really need to be forthcoming, because if it was not ready and if it wasn't allowed, how did people get on there? So there's so many questions, and we'll keep an eye on that. I thought Ankita might cover that, so if it wasn't, so that's why I said that one. Ladies and gentlemen, right now it's time to look at some of our functions and events right here in Brisbane. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have time for you in this segment. Don't forget that we are coming up at 10 a.m. with the weekly real estate update with Usha Chandra. We'd love to see you all there. It's been wonderful having your company today on the second day of November 2022. 22 degrees and some rain coming later in the day, but right now it's a beautiful day right here in Brisbane. Until our next show, it's goodbye from us.